Oh man, it's another one. DJ Khaled voice.
That wasn't quite DJ Khaled voice.
I can't do DJ.
That was
Khaled.
like quiet Khaled voice.
I can't do DJ Khaled.
Light
voice.
Khaled voice.
I can't handle that type of voice. But shout out to DJ Khaled. Shout out to inspirational people. Shout out to people that are the first at things. DJ Khaled is the first DJ to have some hard ad libs. He is from Florida.
I don't know if that's true. I feel like that can't be true.
Or maybe not hard ad libs, but memorable ad libs.
I feel like that can't be true.
Keys.
I don't know.
Keys. I mean, people remember a lot of his stuff.
I can't give you specifics because I haven't done my research, as some would say. But
funny thing
there's
about
probably DJs before that.
Popular culture at the time that it's going, it's about perception. It's always about perception. Things that I think might be popular might not be popular to you.
Right.
Where are they getting? Who builds a consensus of that? Who in society sets the norm of things that we remember and forget?
But doesn't popular just mean that more people know about you and either like you or just know about you? Does it have to be like you? No, I don't think it's like you. I think it's like more people know about you, right?
What about know about you and things that happen pertaining to you, right? Who sets, like, how if it's a crazy killing, for example, a massacre, right? And people forget about it. Why do people forget about it?
Who sets that? I would say probably the media. No?
Well, not everybody's forgetting about it.
Well, no, obviously.
But do you say that the media is building the consensus of it?
No, I didn't say that. I just mean you're saying whose responsibility, not responsibility, but whose. How did you put it? Who
are the people or the person or the entity that calls what we remember and what we forget, as far as on a popular stream of consciousness,
something that we see every day,
everybody agrees with. For example, that color, this color is black, right? We all agree that it's black, right? We all agree that Malcolm X was a black man. We all agree that George W. Bush just died. He's a white man. So these are truths, right? But there's things that are absolute truths that we seem to forget about, no matter sometimes how big they are, how catastrophic we as a society forget about it. So is there a group of people that set the norm in the consciousness of the popular population, right? Or is it just something that just happens by coincidence and we just forget as a people? And I'm not saying everybody. So this story we're about to talk about is not, I'm not saying that everybody has forgot about this, because I know that there's strong people that have known about this since it's happened. There's family members that have been left over that are witnesses to these things. So I want to completely take a moment to pay respect to if anything comes off in funny or in a nature, is because we're trying to digest this as positively as we can. But by all means, this story is about remembering, being humble to things that have happened in our past. Let's question these things, right?
Yeah,
so that we have an understanding,
past.
You know.
Florida's past.
And I don't want this story to bring about any hate against anyone, because these are things that happened in the past. And I would like to think that we've evolved as people.
Yeah, for sure.
But as we evolve as people, it's important to remember our past.
You need to remember things like this,
because this is what makes us better people, you know?
Yeah.
So this story is about the Ocoee Massacre.
Well, okay. First, I guess.
Did I just drop that hard?
You know what I mean?
I just boom.
Right.
Okay, so this is
a story about.
This is the legacy of the election day of 1920 in Central Florida.
What was the date, though? What was the date? Do you remember?
November 2nd.
November 2nd, 1920.
1920.
In the United States, Florida.
Yeah. So before I get into the story, I've been listening back on some of the episodes, and I think we're coming from a misogynistic point of view.
We?
I think so. Because we're both men, and if we
just automatically?
Yeah.
Because we're men? Okay.
So, we already started this podcast. There's only 2 microphones, but I would like to invite a female presence to the podcast.
Okay.
I would like to introduce you to Kimberly.
Okay.
Kimberly is an AI text-to-speech program, but she identifies as a real woman, and she's in a transitional period.
What?
I met her online, and she's going to be part of the podcast, and she's going to deliver the story from the internet. She's connected to the internet, so she's going to bring us facts, because I clearly fall victim to slurring words, misgrammar pronunciations,
pronunciations. Do you know?
Definitions and weirdo
some misgrammar
things.
pronunciations.
I can't even spell. I sound smart, but I'm a complete idiot. And I'm not going to judge you, but I think me and you are in the same canoe.
Oh.
But Kimberly,
I'm not going to disagree
lighthouse.
with you, but that was a funny way to put it. All right, cool.
So Kimberly's the lighthouse.
So I didn't know anything about this. I don't know what this is exactly. I just want to preface whatever's about to happen.
Hello, Christopher Thompson. Hello, Frito Peans.
Frito.
My name is Kimberly and your ears are my bitch from now on.
Come on, man.
You ready, lil bitches?
No, man.
Hey, race the story of the Ocoee Massacre.
Thought. You just said... No. You just said that you weren't going to, disrespect or, And then that's the first thing you play?
This is a complete side.
That's crazy.
This is complete. I had to introduce her.
I know, but, with the bitch and all of that, you got to say all that.
That's her personality. I just copy and paste. She spits out the algorithm. All right. So back to so this happened in 1920. All right. Do you want a moment of silence?
I don't even know which button to.
All right, bro. Sure. Let's let Kimberly. She's here. Let her do her job. All right.
All right.
Ocoee Massacre was a white mob attack on African American residents in northern Ocoee, Florida, which occurred on November 2, 1920, the day of the U.S. presidential election. The town is in Orange County near Orlando. As many as 50 or 60 African Americans may have been killed during the riot, and most African American-owned buildings and residences in northern Ocoee were burned to the ground. Other African Americans living in southern Ocoee were later driven out on threat of more violence. Ocoee essentially became an all-white town. The riot has been described as the single bloodiest day in modern American political history.
Wasn't there some stories or something that suggested the number was upwards of 400 instead of, you said she said 50
according
to 60?
to the Wikipedia seems to be what the majority of people think sometimes, but
that's what Wikipedia says,
right? But there's other stories. We're gonna ask Kimberly to pull from other stories where they say that it's upwards in the 400s.
Yeah.
There's a really cool documentary that you should get. I purchased the last copy on Amazon, so you're gonna have to wait till they restock. It's called Ocoee: The Legacy of Election Day.
Okay.
And it's completely about it. And they, according to their research, it was upwards in the 400s.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really be interested because that's supposedly overnight. Is that?
No. Well, it was the first day. The second was the majority of it, but then there was a few weeks or maybe months of trying to get the blacks.
Okay.
The murders happened, I think, within that. It was like over a day, like a Tuesday to a Wednesday, right? Mm-hmm. In the context of maybe 20 or 32 hours, right? But after that, according to history, since the blacks left, they basically sold off the land to the whites, or the other side is the whites forged the documents and took over the land. And that's really where the story is. So it's this huge massacre that happened in 1920. This land was taken away from these people. Some accounts say that it was 50 to 60 people. Some accounts say that it's more than 400 people, men, children, women. And so this is this is Florida in the 1920s. This is about 50, 60 years after Emancipation Proclamation.
Probably like a lot of America.
Yeah, and there was a lot of blacks coming down to Florida to basically build, because there was opportunity, sharecropping, different things for them to get land very cheap and work it and build their own things. And there was very affluent blacks in the 1920s in Ocoee. There was a strong, rich community in North Ocoee and also in South Ocoee. And these families owned hundreds of acres of land, and they're very prosperous. They had cars and they had their own.
What? So this is 1920. What year was Black Wall Street?
That's a good question. Black Wall Street.
The same scenario, the same kind of like affluent. They got their own banks, their own grocery stores, all that, and the same kind of like.
I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was in. This is together.
Yeah, just click that.
I wonder why they have it as Greenwood, but I don't.
Because that's where it was, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the story fully, but this was another. This is another town that was super successful.
Race Riot 1921.
Wow, so this was before, and you guys should look up, because it's not a Florida story. We're just speaking about it, but these are massacres and pillaging of black communities that were going on at the turn of the century, because it was the first real level. This is talking like 50, 60 years. So blacks were starting to get their feet, planted, land, money, power. I want to start to vote. I want my voice to be heard. Man. You know what I mean? And one of the gentlemen that we have to talk about
in the one before we leave it all the way, in the Tulsa one, they literally drop bombs
from planes.
Out of planes. Like, I'm in a plane and I'm just going to drop a bomb out of planes. Crazy, man. Anyway, go ahead. One of the gentlemen.
White people suck. I'm Italian, so maybe I'm a little bit white people. Man. Not white people now, but in the context of the past, man. Like,
no, not even in the past. It ain't really
like what the fuck,
probably
man.
Controversial or whatever, but I just believe it is a people, and they happen to be white. It's like, you know what I mean? It's because there's plenty of white people, whatever, that are great. You know, great, awesome.
Well, so black people are great too, bro. Yeah, let's hear about July Perry, Kimberly. This is a little bit about the story of July Perry, and he is the reason.
What was her name again?
Kimberly.
All right, Kimberly.
This is from Medium.com. By the way, July Perry makes you guys look like pussies. It seemed like a lifetime ago since Julius Perry, better known as July to pretty much everyone in western Orange County, first arrived in Ocoee. 30 years prior, the teenager hopped off the mule-drawn wagon after the multi-day trip from Travelers Rest, South Carolina. He was overflowing with enthusiasm about the opportunities post-Reconstruction era Florida would bring. He and his traveling companions, Mose Norman and Valentine Hightower, walked through the small but bustling downtown of the 1880s village and set their eyes on the pine tree-lined Stark Lake for the first time. They had little but their dreams and a strong work ethic, though the shadows of the Confederacy still lingered in central.
So, they were talking about them as kids?
No, this is them. They grew up in South Carolina. They, July, Mose, and Valentine.
Valentine. Oh, man.
It's Valentine. You really like this guy, Valentine, huh?
Well, his name, Hightower. Valentine Hightower. Nice. This is an amazing name.
So they moved down to Florida to establish like a homestead, basically. We're going to buy some farmland. We're going to farm the land. We're going to become, rich men, and these like me, you, and Tristan, me, you, and you know what I mean. Like we just got together. We're gonna build something, and there wasn't that many opportunities in the 90s. You know what I mean? That they were going.
Okay, we found it 1850s Western Banks, but they came down in the 90s. You saying?
In the 1880s.
80s, so this happened 40 years later. So they came down as teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they built up,
Yeah.
So they were established in Florida.
Yeah.
So
But up and down Florida, right?
No, they moved to Ocoee.
No, I'm saying as far as like being known, this guy Perry, he was known like up.
Or was it just
Orange County?
Well, yeah. Well, Mo and July, from the little research that I read about, the reason why they were well known in the community, not just because they had money. I mean, homie had a really nice car. Check the car out.
Homie had a really nice car.
So this was the top of the line, like Mustang back in the day. You know what I mean?
That's nice right now, though. Look at the way it's. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. And this is car that he used to whip around. Man. So these guys were established, and what they started doing is back then they had a voting tax, right? So this voting tax basically prevented a lot of poor blacks from not having a voice, not being able to vote. So because this is 1920 now, right? So we're talking about 40, 50 years. So these are grown men now with money and deep pockets because they've established themselves. So they start paying. Yeah. For the tax, and this makes them an enemy of the whites that are trying to keep power.
Yeah, they're paying for other people's tax or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Florida long into the 1900s, Ocoee was becoming the model for a post-slavery economically integrated southern town. The next 3 decades went well for the Palmetto State transplants. Very well, in fact. With a thriving black middle class beginning to emerge in Ocoee, these 3 friends were perhaps its most prosperous sons. By then each were owners of multiple large tracts of farmland on the north side of town and had attained a wealth and status coveted even by local whites. To be sure, despite the relative tranquility and economic cooperation, there was still a prevalent undercurrent of racism in Southern society.
Same thing that happened in Black Wall Street.
Of course.
The white community was poor. They didn't have the right economics. They were jealous of the black community, according to historical context. I don't know these white people, so I don't want to, but this is according to historical context.
In the cities and towns across Florida, distinct geographic lines had been drawn between the black and white communities. Having business dealings with the inferior race was one thing, but having social and religious crossover was still many decades away. Ocoee was founded in the 1850s along the western banks of the pristine Stark Lake, as a camp for laborers working the farms around southern shores of Lake Apopka. A village soon grew up around the camp and became what is now the downtown historic district. By 1920 there were just over 1,000 residents of the unincorporated town. Almost half of them were black.
Okay, so if there were 1,000 residents,
real quick, let's pull up Ocoee on the map in relation to Orlando. This is what we're talking about.
And this is North Ocoee.
Yeah,
This is where they had their settlement by the lake. Because remember,
this is 429.
Yeah.
Didn't exist. 429 Lake Apopka, downtown Orlando.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Ocoee. So this is where they were hanging out.
North Ocoee up here.
North Ocoee.
Yeah.
And July Perry was the man in these streets.
And Mose Roseman.
Mose Roseman.
Yeah.
Where did they okay. We'll go back to that map. We'll go back to the map.
Hold on, I just want to make sure. It's Mose, Mose Norman. Okay. This is the old
Windermere, Lake Butler.
Yeah.
Let's find that real quick.
Why you like that area right here?
That's right. That Lake Butler is this thing.
Yeah.
So what is that map for?
I mean, that's an old map of the 1920s. This
Of
is,
like what though?
this is, I think,
Road map of Western Orange County in 1920.
So this is all the roads that would run and stuff.
434.
Yeah.
414 still.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Watch out, microphone. Coming at you. All right, I'm just trying to get some context, you know what I mean? Like
what kind of context?
Just like, okay, we're talking about these people, right? So you say they rode in. So where'd they ride in from? Like how'd they come in and where are they at?
South Carolina.
Right.
And they heard about the like Kimberly was saying that Ocoee, they were hearing about Ocoee. This is a place you can come buy land. It's cheap. Come settle your stuff. There's a labor force here.
So they were just here basically putting farms and shit.
They built their house. They're settlers.
Yeah.
This was all farmland back then.
1920s. Okay, boom.
That's what you did in Florida. You came down here and you farmed. That's what the sharecroppers did. That's what they did in Florida. And they did sugarcane and orange.
Sugarcane and orange.
Yeah.
In fact, the African American population grew so large that two distinct black communities developed, sandwiching the white-dominated downtown district.
Ooh.
The southern black...
So let's say this, to be the devil's advocate, like she just said, so there was a north and south community that were affluent, middle class, they were thriving. In the middle were the whites, okay? This is an Oreo cookie going on right now. This is the Oreo cookie.
We're talking about right here?
Right here. Top set.
Blacks?
Right here.
Whites?
It looks like mayonnaise, but it's not.
Right.
It's, what is
Blacks
that?
Again?
What's in the middle of an Oreo cookie?
Some delicious white cream.
Are they delicious? So
They're fucking spectacular, sir.
sometimes I like less cream. But anyway.
Right.
So this
they got palm oil though, so we shouldn't really eat it.
Thank you for that.
Because
can they find this out at Just Do It Vegan?
They can. Just Do It
Vegan.com. That's our sponsor. Check them out.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Oreo cookie of racism is starting, okay? And the whites might feel oppressed. There's blacks coming in from north and south. Oh my God, they might run in here and kill me.
Fear, man.
Fear
is nuts. They'll do it to you every time.
But why don't you?
It's different. Something different, I guess.
So we're gonna just form the Ku Klux Klan.
Well, besides that, there was a legitimate, like I'm trying to say, like constant, losing the word for it, but like
oppression.
Fear, there was like a, just like a constant
anxiety.
No, they're trying. There's like a campaign. There was like a campaign against, like, to get the like the how blacks are seen. You know what I mean?
Because maybe the southern.
Damn, I can't believe I blanked on shit. But you know, basically, just like the there was a whole like campaign against, not against, but just like it was against, but it was like making up.
Well, I understand what you're saying, because the South was a nation. They felt like losers. Like they lost the Civil War. They got their land taken away from them. They got their way of life. You know what I mean? It's like taking marijuana away from the Coptics. You know what I mean? Like, don't take my slaves away from me. This is the way I'm used to living. And I'm not. It's not right, but that's the way they were.
Propaganda. Damn, the word was propaganda that I was trying to think of.
But propaganda.
That's what it was. After slavery was, abolished in the South, there was legitimate like media propaganda about, that's where like animals and they're gonna come and do this, that, and the third.
Oh, so, like the Willie Lynch letter or the Willie Lynch?
All of that shit, just the whole like wave of propaganda,
right?
And then that definitely kept going from the 20s into when Hoover did it. You know what I mean?
It's still going on now.
Still going on now, like the scare tactics and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry. I couldn't think of the word. I blanked on the word. It was propaganda.
It came, so don't
That's
apologize.
what I wanted it.
Black community.
Unless you don't want it.
No.
That's a sexual joke.
No.
Known locally as the Baptist Quarters. Sprung up around the Friendship Baptist Church, an unpainted wood-framed church founded in 1896. The neighborhood was located just south of the intersection of Orlando Avenue and Blueford Avenue. Cutting through the heart of downtown, Blueford Avenue is the main north-south artery through Ocoee. It was once part of Route 22, the snaking highway connecting Winter Garden to Orlando. In the years before Highway 50 made it a straight shot, it took about an hour by car to arrive in downtown Orlando from Ocoee.
God damn.
Heading northward on Blueford from downtown and crossing the railroad tracks, you find the northern black community, commonly known as the Methodist Quarters. Its namesake Ocoee African Methodist Episcopal Church held its first services in 1890. The church itself was likely located near what is now the city of Ocoee Central Park Sports Complex. Off of the nearby cul-de-sac on Anderson Place there is a 1-acre lot that was only recently memorialized as the former African American cemetery. The graveyard lacks any surviving tombstones, but was the likely location of the original AIM Church. It was the Northern Methodist Quarters, the older of the two neighborhoods, where the three amigos built their homesteads. They were next-door neighbors even, all settling along what is now Apopka Ocoee Road. July Perry had become the well-respected godfather of the black community. He served as a deacon in the church and the local labor leader or straw boss. It was said that anyone seeking to employ black laborers needed to speak with him first. He was an admired, brave, and rational thinker. A sort of civil rights leader before there was a civil rights movement.
How can you fear a man like that? This guy works hard. He takes care of his family. Like, it's not like he's out doing crime and like he wasn't like the Black Billy the Kid. You know what I mean?
Well, when you fear like a race of people rising up, when you fear that power, when one person has that kind of power that isn't white or whatever, then those stupid bucks, you know what I mean, they do stuff like that people do all kinds of crazy shit out of fear and just ignorance. It's like you don't need to, you know, work with us if there is a us, you know. I try not to subscribe to all of that shit. I have to because I live in this world, but I try not to, you know. I understand like people gotta be black and white and all of that shit, but like it sucks that people have to be black and white and all of that shit.
But just imagine being July Perry and working your ass off.
So much worse.
Putting in all this work and being a contributing member to society, building up a whole side of town. Yeah. This north side is, you know, hey, we built it and there's no respect in that. You guys built your side. It takes the same 24 hours every day.
That's what racists do, man.
He encouraged young blacks to be educated and stand up for themselves as first-class citizens. Perry's wife Estelle, his 3 sons and daughter, Coretha Perry Caldwell, lived on a large estate that included their home and several barns and outbuildings.
We got whack names nowadays. Back then they had way better, like
Valentine Hightower.
Ethel.
Come on. I fought a kid named Valentine in the 1st grade.
Was it on Valentine's Day?
What I got? No. But he was talking to my boy Billy all wrong. I had to step up for him. But I kept hitting him. He kept coming. That's what sucked about it. Valentine, take a punch.
Where's Billy now?
I don't know. Billy Price, man. I don't know.
Shout out, Billy.
Yeah, man. Good times. Steakums. Eat steakums with his dad. He actually fought me for no reason. He tried to embarrass me in front of Rebecca. Didn't work out good for him. Oh, well.
Shout out to Billy.
This was like early. This is like 1st grade, bro.
Shout out to Rebecca.
This is early. This is early Billy talk. I hope he's good. He looks back.
They regularly opened their doors to anyone in need. If anyone was in trouble, they knew they could find advice and sanctuary in the Perry home. Meanwhile, 59-year-old Mose Norman and wife Elisa liked to live a little more lavishly, enjoying the fruits of the years of hard work farming the 100-acre family orange grove. He drove around the brick-paved streets of downtown proudly sporting a fancy 6-cylinder Columbia convertible with white sidewall tires, silver spokes, and elegant storm curtains instead.
Could it be envy?
Elegant storm curtains. What is that?
Envy?
Could it be envy? It's definitely part of it's envy, but like, I don't know, man. It's hard. It's really hard for me to all the way get inside the mind of a racist. You know what I mean? I understand there's fear. I get that. I get the fear part, right? But the rest of it, the acting on it, the like systematic lawmaking and like constant microaggressive things that happen. I don't get that part. I get the actual phobia, but like that's just a fear that I feel like happens because maybe, you know how kind of like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. So that's why you're so mad about it.
I think fear, everything in the human psychology that's mostly on the negative side comes from insecurity. And insecurity
okay,
breeds overcompensation. And overcompensation leads to blind will. And blind will is fueled by all these things, fear, envy, all these things. You know what I mean? So when you are insecure, you overcompensate for things, and it leads to things like this. The question is, and I'm sure it happens, I'm sure black people revolt, and, Nat Turner, there's been African Americans. It's just, the systematic white privilege, right, allows for the white man to kind of
the white man
be the oppressor, be the controller. So if they're insecure, they can shadow it or put a curtain in front of it with privilege.
When you say the white man, you mean the racist white man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Italian. I can be considered white. Like, I'm a fucking asshole. Am I racist?
Nah, Peans ain't white.
I mean, I'm Spanish. Yeah, I get it, all that. But
anyway, I just want to be clear on that part. I guess say like the white man. Just like, let's make sure we're talking about
white people.
Mose was definitely a well-known and prosperous man about town. It was said that he was once offered $10,000 for his groves, a huge sum for the time, but refused to take it. Unlike his two friends, Valentine Hightower had a much more low-key personality. He knew well the dangers Negroes opened up for themselves when they got too uppity in the still very white supremacist society of the time. He and his wife Jane lived a modest lifestyle and raised kids to mainly keep to themselves.
But uppity?
They answered politely when spoken to and preferred not to draw too much attention to themselves.
Yeah, man.
My father was kind of humble. Hightower's son Armstrong recalled many decades later, he didn't take no chances on nothing. As the summer of 1920 rolled around, July was still feeling that same kind of optimism about the future that he had when he first arrived. And for good reason. Business was booming, his orange and cucumber harvests were bigger than ever, and the upcoming November election
Mose had the sugar.
Cucumber, nice.
Had everyone in the black community hopeful that they might see the first ever Republican elected to the Florida Senate. Opposite of today's party paradigm, the political arena in the South of the early 20th century was dominated by white Democrats, sometimes known as Dixiecrats. Conversely, the states north of the Mason-Dixon line were Republican strongholds. Blacks, if involved in politics at all, were almost exclusively Republican. Fueled largely by an influx of Northerners moving to the Florida frontier, the Republican Party's influence slowly began to creep into the Deep South. They brought with them winds of an early-stage civil rights movement.
This is July right here.
Whether by sincere concern for the African-American plight or mere political opportunism, these Republicans sought to work with the black population to empower them and more importantly register them to vote. Though blacks were granted the right to vote under the 15th Amendment to the Constitution in 1870, most did not exercise the freedom for decades. Reasons for this vary from intimidation to indifference to voter suppression techniques, such as the poll tax. After slavery was abolished at the end of the Civil War, the Northerners instituted an era of Reconstruction that was resented by white citizens of the South. To them it was a punishment and power grab being handed down by the Yankees. They abhorred the changes to their way of life and held ill will toward the Northern carpetbaggers who sought to impose it. In the decades that followed, the subjugation of the black population was codified by Jim Crow laws, segregation, spoken or unspoken cultural rules, and even Ku Klux Klan-sponsored intimidation and violence.
Hold on, what's a carpetbagger?
Far from an undercover secret society of extremists.
I remember that from like 5th grade. But I don't remember the definition.
Carpetbagger. Oh, it's like a nomad. Somebody. It's a political candidate who seeks election in the area where they have local connections.
When they have no local connections, right? When they're not
so
from, you ain't from around here.
At the time, the Klan was a major political and cultural force in the region. What is now Orange and Lake counties were among the strongest footholds the KKK had in the state of Florida. The Klan held rallies and met regularly to show their force.
Wow.
It is said that, at the time, 90% of the law enforcement officers, judges, public servants, and lawyers in
KKK.
Winter Garden and Ocoee were members of the Hooded Order.
Said Orange and Lake County.
For the first time in the 1920 elections,
And they were all cops and judges, and this is, remember that point, because it's going to come back.
This is 1920, right? It's going to be 100 years in 2020. Only 100.
You know how scary it is that all the
Only
cops
100
are
years.
white, like they get.
women would also have the right to vote, including black women. Throughout the South, the Republicans worked with prominent local black leaders on voter registration drives within their communities. They spread the word, signed people up. In some cases paying the poll tax for those who could not afford it, and encouraged them to turn out on election day. John Moses Cheney.
That's really what made him a so-called enemy to the Ku Klux Klan and the powers to be, is that
the voting,
because he started paying for the poll tax,
yeah.
and that, that's power. That's just using his money for power,
right?
Eastern part of modern-day Highway 50 has been dubbed Cheney Highway, was a powerful white Republican. The former judge was a major contributor to the Get Out the Vote campaign around Orange County. These voter registration efforts intensified approaching the 1920 elections. Cheney, the wealthy owner of Orlando Power and Light, was also an aspiring politician who was running for Senate. He would need a major helping hand from black voters if his campaign were to have any hope. His numerous previous congressional and gubernatorial campaigns since 1900 had all fallen well flat. What is old becomes new again. Newspapers, the dominant form of media at the time, played a major role in firing up the conservative Democratic base. Great fear and uncertainty was sparked in whites around the state by inflammatory headlines of how the Negro population would soon take over and democracy be overrun by servants and cooks. This exacerbated the angst of many local whites and especially the Klan, who sought to maintain both white and Democratic dominance in state and local politics. Blacks, they felt, were beginning to reach above their station and needed to be cut back down. Regardless, the voter registration movement continued. In the weeks leading up to the 1920 election, the Klan sent threatening letters to Cheney, fellow attorney William O'Neill, and other Republican leaders. They ordered them to stop the voter registration campaign or face...
Well, at the beginning, they said there was 1,000 people in Ocoee, okay, and half of them were African Americans. That is a large voter group, that this guy, old Cheney over here, he really wanted to galvanize these African Americans because that could make everything down the middle. I mean, maybe that's the reason why Florida became such a swing state, is because the African Americans were introduced. You know what I mean?
The consequences.
I don't know anything about this. Why it's such a swing
the Klan
state.
Was only
I think it's the amount of people it has. So we have 3 electoral votes. Is that right, or something like that?
Well,
we have more electoral votes because of the size of our state. I think that's why we're a swing state, right?
I don't know. I think mostly
I'm not good at politics.
The cities vote mostly Democratic, and then the outer rural areas, small little towns, vote Republican, retired people. So that's where a lot of the swingy.
Why we gotta be Republicans and Democrats?
Raged. The KKK held rallies in the streets of cities like Orlando, Daytona, Miami, and Jacksonville.
We gotta send out propaganda.
In complete white hoods and regalia, they marched in attempts to show strength and scare off.
Bro, how scary is that? Like, dude, it's not Halloween. Dude's in a freaking full sheet like marching down the street, like better not vote,
Right.
Negro man.
Right.
Any blacks who would dare cast a ballot. Reports say the Orlando rally was at least 500 strong. On November 1st, the day before the election.
I know this is getting long-winded, but I need you guys to understand, like, this is festering. It's boiling up in Florida. There's this racial injustice that people feel, especially African Americans, that's going on. There's this white community of Ku Klux Klan that are trying to hold on to their neighborhoods and their communities, and this is what led to the massacre. It just didn't come up.
Make America great again.
They didn't just wake up in the morning like, let's go kill all these black people. It seems like they were planning. They were not planning, but they were waiting or
for something to go off,
or just feel it, or just.
I think it just went too far, right?
Or it's a systematic thing. It's something. The minute that the Emancipation Proclamation came through and the South lost the Civil War, well, here comes this mentality of fear, of being
what year
a
was
loser. Like 1850 something. That's why I said it's been 50, 60 years that it's been building up, you know. And now black people got money. They're ready to vote. They're not going to talk down. It's not yes sir, yes ma'am. I'm not your boy, you know. I got my own land. I got my own car. My wife, my kids. They're good people. They're intelligent people. We're not animals.
With robes and crosses, the Klan paraded through the streets of the two black.
Been listening to that new Jay-Z
communities in Ocoee late into the.
He threw that 3/5 in there.
Yes, and the Meek Mill album.
Free. What's free?
What's free? Yeah,
with megaphones, they warned that not a single Negro will be permitted to vote, and if any of them dared to do so, there would be dire consequences.
How dare you?
Election day came, and at least some blacks did attempt to vote in Orange County. However, none were permitted to enter their respective polling places. White enforcers camped out around the centers, and poll workers were given instructions to deflect their attempts. One by one would-be black voters were turned away either by threats of violence or by poll workers who found their names mysteriously absent from the voter registration rolls. Pollsters instructed them to get documentation from Notary Public R.C. Beachlow to verify that they were indeed registered to vote. Conveniently, however, Beachlow was unable to be located because he was out on a fishing trip that day.
What a coincidence.
He was
the supervisor of elections, has to go out fishing all the time. Think somebody was in his ear?
With little other option, most returned to their homes without casting their ballots. Mose Norman would not be so easily deterred. After being turned away that morning in his Ocoee precinct, he rode to Orlando to seek the counsel of Judge Cheney. The attorney instructed him to write down the names of any African Americans who were not permitted to vote, and also the names of the poll workers who had denied their constitutional right.
Cheney was an attorney.
Cheney said a lawsuit against the county could be brought to contest this violation. Norman returned to Ocoee with these instructions, along with a handful of black citizens again seeking to vote. As you can imagine, things did not go well.
What was most
after again being...
They all had the whips. They all had a nice car.
They all had a nice car. So, what's top speed of that, you think?
I don't know, like 40, 50 miles an hour.
40, 50 miles an hour.
Depending on what terrain, there was not a lot of road.
An hour.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it said. From Ocoee to Orlando, an hour.
Yeah.
Forcibly turned away, he demanded the poll workers' names and exclaimed, "We will vote, by God." At that time Norman was revealed to have a loaded shotgun, either on his person or in his car, and an altercation ensued.
So
Mose
pulls up first. He's like, "I'm trying to vote." I'm like, "Nah, you can't vote." It's like, "What? I want to vote." It's like, "Nah, you can't vote." So he leaves Ocoee, gets in his badass car, goes to Orlando.
With a shotgun.
Well, not yet, right? He's not brandishing anything yet. It's the first time. This is when he first goes to Orlando. So he goes to Orlando and he says to Cheney, he's like, "Hey, they won't let me vote." So he says, "All right, write everybody's name down that wants to vote. They're not letting vote. And we'll just keep track of it." So he goes over there.
Well, no, he told them that we'll keep track of it and start a lawsuit against the state and the county.
Yeah. So, but then Mose goes back, goes to try to vote again. They won't let him vote again. So now he pulls out a shotgun.
Well, he had the shotgun in the car.
It's in the car.
According to the whites, he looked aggressive. So
of course he did. He was black, right?
They attacked him, took the gun from him.
Immediately, black people, because of the propaganda, immediately black people are aggressive.
He's been going. This is, like you said, it's the second time he was going. Sorry if we sound like sloths eating on the podcast, but
I think it's okay.
it's a freaking hour long. I need energy. Now, I just happened to find this cool video with this gentleman that was actually 13 years old when this happened. So, Kimberly, thank you very much. We'll come back to you shortly, but we want a
Yo, Kimberly, where? Okay, how did you
She's
find out?
Transitioning. Don't judge her.
I don't know.
You're open-minded. You
I
were
don't know
driving
what this,
a float
I don't know what this means
in a pride parade, and you can't accept Kimberly?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What is you? Okay, go back to the beginning for a second of Kimberly.
Let's watch this.
I want to hear the origin of this being.
Welcome back to Our Legacy, the Willie Clark Show Black History Month special. You know, many people know about the story of Rosewood, the North Florida town that was destroyed by whites in 1920. Of course, we saw the movie, right? But not many people know that there was a similar incident right here in Central Florida in the city of Ocoee. It occurred on Election Day, 1920, when Mose Norman, an African-American, went to the polls and attempted to vote. He was turned away, but he returned later with a shotgun. He was disarmed and beaten by whites. And later, his friend July Perry obtained a note from the judge saying that indeed he and Mose Norman were eligible to vote in this election. Later that afternoon, a group of whites burst into July Perry's home. Mr. Perry, armed with a shotgun, killed 2 of the white men. He was arrested and taken to the Orlando jail. Later on that day, a mob of whites broke into the jail, removed Mr. Perry. He was taken out and lynched. Throughout the remainder of the day in Ocoee, a riot ensued as whites went about burning black churches, homes, and businesses. 5 blacks were killed, and by the end of the day, no blacks resided in the city of Ocoee. It would be 50 years before African Americans would return.
So he just said 5 blacks were killed,
According to his account.
Reverend Fred L. Maxwell, who has been the pastor of the St. John Missionary
That's
Baptist
the lowest
Church
number
in
I've
Orlando
heard.
for 34 years, joins us now. He was just 13 at the time of the race riot, but he remembers it very well. Pastor Maxwell, thanks for joining me for the program.
I'm more than grateful.
Could you take us back to...
So you think maybe somebody else is inflating the numbers?
I don't know what's happening. I just know I've heard 50, 40, 50, right?
400.
405.
And this is supposedly
This guy was there.
Reverend Maxwell.
So, but still Ocoee Massacre. I don't know. What is right? What's the correct number?
1920 and your remembrances of the Ocoee race riot. I understand you were familiar with Moses
And he's not calling it the massacre, he's calling it a race riot.
Norman and also July Perry.
Right.
Was in that.
Now, the voting took place the early morning of November 7th, and of course, as a result, a riot.
So he says November 7th, and the account is November 2nd. He said November 7th, right? Okay.
Maybe he said second. I don't know.
Of November 7th, and of course, as a result, a riot, an insurrection occurred. And throughout the day, many people were hurt. But it just so happened that one good friend of my father, Mose Norman, was one of the outstanding citizens and property owners in the Ocoee area. And when he saw that the situation had gotten out of hand, and the Klan, for at least the mobsters, began setting fire to homes of black people, plus the churches, 2 churches, and Masonic Hall. And Mose Norman, he took off in his Columbia 6 automobile and
that was
came
that nice
by
car.
the home of our family, and called my father and related to my father what was going on. And of course, Mose Norman was able to escape the wrath of the mob. But unfortunately, Mr. July Perry, of course, employing his...
So Thompson was just pointing at the fact that also, the story that they're cutting to also said 5 people.
Weapons and ammunition, attempting to defend himself and family. He was shot and wounded in his cane.
And I understand Mr. Norman had just talked about or come from July Perry's house just before he came to your house.
He left Mr. July when he discovered that Mr. July Perry had been shot. Then Mose, for his safety, he took off and escaped. And he came by our home and called my father. And
now,
of course,
you're over in Apopka. Now, the rioting didn't spill over to an Apopka, but what were the senses of the
so
time?
the riot went from Ocoee and it spilled over to Apopka, according to their content.
I mean, what was the mood amongst people? Were people, I mean, even before the elections took place, were people aware there's going to be trouble? I would imagine in 1920 and the Voting Rights Act just hadn't been passed
yes.
in 19...
Now, Mr. Norman also said to my father that some nights before, perhaps a week before, that the Ku Klux Klan had conducted a parade late one night, and they were speaking over bugles, warning the blacks that on election day, don't go to the polls. If you do, it's going to be serious trouble.
So these were brave and courageous men.
Oh, yeah.
They knew what they were in for.
That's right.
And they understood what the problem was.
Yes. So now Mr. Norman, of course, before he came to my father, he came to Orlando and called for then a federal judge. I can't remember the judge's name.
Judge Cheney.
And explained to him
Judge
what happened. And the judge informed him, says, well, if you can survive this, you can bring...
If you can survive this?
That was his response.
If you can survive this.
If you can live through it, you can file a lawsuit, bro. Good news. Good news.
A lawsuit because you are entitled to vote. So since they denied you all the opportunity to vote, you can sue the county or the state. But so then Mr. Perry left the judge, came on to my father.
So you can lose in the lawsuit.
What happened, and then he disappeared. So we don't know.
It ain't fair, God.
You were a very young child at that point.
I was 13 years of age.
How did that impact your life? What was the statement there? And I know you've been an outspoken advocate for the rights of African Americans in Central Florida for a long time.
Yes.
Was that one of the incidents that inspired you?
It had quite an impact, a devastating impact.
So you're hearing, this is historical accounts from an eyewitness
of a guy that was there.
So they go to July Perry's house, okay? They go to July Perry's house with this guy.
First Mose goes through.
Well, he runs to July Perry and lets him know, and then he was like, they're coming, I'm going to dip, right? So July stands back.
Do we know where July Perry's house was?
Yeah, it's in northern Ocoee.
Can we see? Well, you don't know where.
Well, they said it, and I don't really remember. Yeah, it's northern Ocoee,
right,
but
cool.
You can hear it back. And she specifically said exactly, well, Kimberly, if you were listening to her, but you weren't. She specifically said.
I was listening to Kimberly.
You're a little biased against Kimberly. I just
don't understand entirely what's happening with Kimberly.
Doesn't that happen with everybody that's going through transition?
What kind of transition are you talking
transition.
about?
When you want to identify with something else, people get they get confused. What did you just say?
Huh?
What did you just say? What did you just say?
I just want to know what's going on.
No. Before that, what did you just say?
I don't know. What do you? I'm confused.
All right.
I guess.
Let's.
Now I'm more confused.
Transition.
So we're saying that Kimberly's a real person, but she's talking through a robot, or she's a robot that's trying to become just establish what reality.
I'm not trying to judge her. Why are you trying to judge her?
I want to be on the same page as far as which reality we're living in right now.
I don't know the context or the nouns of how to describe.
How did you meet Kimberly?
Online. I was looking for a text-to-speech program, and she popped up. And
as what?
I hired her.
Text-to-speech program. Like what? Like
She's an AI. She's an artificial intelligence person.
But who's talking?
She is. All right, so back to the story, because Thompson is not, he judges people a lot, and he doesn't allow them to transition. So they show up to July Perry, a mob of them, okay, with this gentleman right here, Sam Salisbury.
Like the steak?
Like the steak. Sam Salisbury is a lieutenant or an ex-colonel. He used to be a chief of police of Orlando. He's retired now. He was a strong member of the Ku Klux Klan at the time.
Strong member.
And he shows up to July Perry with an attitude.
He's retired now?
Yeah, he's a retired Orlando sheriff.
He's alive?
No, at the time. He was previously he moved down from New York. And
right, no, because he's gone now. He's off the earth. So I was like, that's pretty funny. He's retired.
Yeah.
Go.
So they show up. They're like, come out the house, Perrybot. Everybody's silent at the house. They try to go into the house. This guy gets shot, okay? July Perry also gets shot, all right? He tries to flee with his wife into I heard on some accounts it was into a sugar plant, like a sugar plantation kind of thing, where it's kind of like
sugarcane fields.
Yeah, that's exactly it, a sugarcane field. So they're trying to hide there, but because they shot. Now, some people, there's two sides of the story. Some people say that it was actually July Perry's wife that shot somebody, and I'll come back to that later, because they say that she got arrested and she got taken to Tampa. Because there's a lot of like inconsistency with some of the story, as we can see from the gentleman that just said there was 5, and then other people are saying there's 50, the other people are saying there's 400. So there's a lot of, and that's what happens when you try to cover up a story. You know what I mean? So this guy gets shot.
Who covered it up?
I don't know. Maybe the people from Ocoee. I'm not sure. So this guy shows up to July Perry's house. They get into a shootout. July takes off with his family. They catch July. Okay. They bring him to the then at the time the Orlando jail. Okay.
Where's that at?
I think it was off Magnolia at the time.
Where's that?
So from Ocoee, they bring him over here, somewhere by the Orange County
courts. Magnolia. Rosalind's Magnolia. It's right here.
Yeah, so right around here, this area. Tristan that's helping me, where I'm helping him and a crew of us to try to do a documentary about this, he says that the building was demolished in some movies in the 80s, so it doesn't even exist anymore. But they brought him to the jail, okay? He's in the jail, shot up, all right? Well, first, I'm sorry, they brought him to a hospital, they got him patched up, then they brought him to jail, okay? Then a few hours later, a mob shows up outside the Orlando jail, okay? Now, this is where it gets a little gray. Some people say that the mob stormed the place, took July out. Some people say that the cops just let them in. But the point is, they took him out. They lynched him. They beat him. They drug him. And the guy was still alive, okay? They brought him to Cheney's house. Old Cheney. Remember Old Cheney?
Back up to Ocoee.
Remember Old Cheney? No, we don't need to back up, because Old Cheney's house is over here.
To the judge's house.
Yes, which was over here by Lake. Oh no, it was over here. It's by one of these lakes.
Lake Lucerne.
I think you can look it up. Old Cheney's house. Did I spell that right?
Yeah, kind of.
John Moses Cheney, is
that? Yeah, that's him. John M. Cheney.
The reason I'm looking this house up is because it's a historical house. Yeah, right here. So this is the house that they brought July Perry out of the jail. They beat him up, drug him with a car, and they lynched him in front of this house to basically let him know you're not going to vote.
No.
And remember what the judge told him?
If you can live through it.
Survive this.
If you can live through it. But he wasn't talking to him. He was talking to Mose, right?
He was talking to both of them.
Both of them.
In a sense.
Because
Because it was a lawsuit for all the blacks.
Did he send them through it?
What do you mean?
Did what's his name send Mose to it?
Well, they all knew because they remember they were the three amigos, so they were affluent. They all knew the judge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. If you can live through it, man. What happened with Mose?
He disappeared.
He did.
There's different stories that say.
What about Valentine Hightower? How do he fare?
Well, the thing is that, remember, there's 1,000 people in Ocoee. Half those people are African Americans. In the 1920s, all of them basically were banished or asked to leave or forcibly put to leave.
There were 1,000 people. Half of them were African American. That's 500 people.
Okay, they all left Ocoee. All right.
So maybe that's where that number is coming from.
There wasn't black people in Ocoee till the 1980s.
Right.
Almost 50 years later. All right.
That's
land.
That's so recent.
The land. Who owns the land now?
Not African Americans. African Americans is always a weird weird describer for me to. Anyway, go ahead.
Who owns the land now?
Who?
I don't know.
Owns the land? The land there?
Somebody owns it now.
Not whoever's supposed to.
Exactly. Now you said Black Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
There's also Rosewood. That was in North Florida.
Rosewood was another town. But they're all over. They're everywhere, man.
Well, there was a huge lawsuit in Rosewood, and that's the reason I bring that up, because there's context to this. The lawyers in that lawsuit got the Rosewood families a lot of money because they could prove that the title transfers of that land was done fraudulently. Mm-hmm. But I guess in Ocoee they had better paperwork. Maybe that 90% of Ku Klux Klan in the judicial system at the time helped out. I don't know. These are all things that I'm bringing. I wasn't around back then. But the point is that there's 500 people that left, okay, or possibly died, okay. Their land was taken from them.
It's stolen.
And nobody speaks about it. The attorneys, they were trying to get the same attorneys from the Rosewood to pick the attorneys that took the case for the Rosewood case to pick up the Ocoee case, and they wouldn't pick it up because of the paperwork. Because the paperwork basically, the title transfer of the property looks like it was actually paid for, and we don't know if the signatures were forged. But you could see, since July Perry was dead, you can act, and this is according to Tristan because he's done a little more research than I have. You can actually see July Perry's wife's signature on some of the transfer papers because between him and Mose Norman, they owned over 330 acres. That's a lot of land. An acre is a lot.
330. I guess
your house is about an acre.
Okay.
So imagine 330 those, and it's probably a little bit more.
Right.
That's how much land that they owned. And there's more land between 500
especially
people.
As a black person.
It's 500 people. You know?
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy that they definitely straight up still do that type of thing to certain segments of the community. Voter.
You believe in the Illuminati. You talk about it all the time.
Do I believe in that? What?
Well,
no, man.
This is a little bit of a conspiracy, okay? Because this is not true. According to a Reddit, and I'm not going to pull it up right now because I can't find the link, but according to
you believe in the Illuminati? You
according
speak about them all the time.
Yeah, you read The Pale White Horse, Cooper. You're a fan. So this is all conspiracy, all right? And it's alleged because in the thread, there's a gentleman that said his grandfather was in Ocoee at the time, okay? And he said that, and again, this is alleged, but it kind of makes sense to me, and that's why I'm saying it. He said that they basically brung all the blacks into the center of town and started killing them all in front of the kids, all right? And then after they were done killing all the black adults in the neighborhood, they brought the kids down to this local lake, and I can't find this lake, but it's, according to the thread, it's called Black Bottom Lake. The only lake that I could find near Ocoee is a lake called Black Lake, and it's like a thriving community now. Lake Stark. It's
Ooh, what is the truth? What's the truth, though?
So this is the saddest point of it. According to them, at this Black Lake, the whites, the Ku Klux Klan, basically either killed or drowned all the rest, the remaining children.
That's way over here, though.
And
not way over here.
Or maybe they were trying to hide the bodies. I don't know. Remember, it also spilled out
to Apopka.
Yeah. And according to folklore and this thread, that there's a whole bunch of
bones,
black little kids, man, at the bottom of this lake, man. It's fucked up.
Folklore.
Man.
You said it was a book?
No, it was a thread on Reddit.
Yeah, but who said?
It was a guy that made the post.
It was a guy.
He said that his grandfather told him the
story. Told him the story. Okay.
And so, no, people in Ocoee are not racist now. That was almost 100 years ago. People have evolved, right? People are different, right?
Yeah,
So what date did this happen? It was November 2nd.
November between the 2nd or the 7th of 1920.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to conclusions here.
Okay.
Please forgive me. Pretend like I'm an attorney and I'm going to say allegedly.
I'm going to jump to conclusions.
There's this event that they do every year on the 2nd called
Who's they?
Founders Day. It's an Ocoee.
Ocoee does it?
Event, and they've been doing it according to the website for 25 years because it's the 25th anniversary in 2018.
So what? The
funny thing is that there's no real understanding on. They just said, "Oh well, we celebrate the founding of Ocoee." Well, Ocoee wasn't founded until 1922. So why are you celebrating it almost 50 years later as the founding of Ocoee? Okay, now peep this promo for this year, and I'm sorry whoever put this together. If somebody from Ocoee sees this and they go to this event and they love this event. I'm just jumping to conclusions here. I could be completely wrong, but I just am looking at it through the eyes of somebody that's been researching all this, and it looks kind of funny. On November 2nd, here's the promo. All right.
Friday, November 2nd.
See,
and Saturday,
tell me
November
what you
3rd,
think is missing from this
Ocoee
promo.
Founders Day Festival kicks off its 25th anniversary in the heart of Central Florida at Ocoee's Bill Breeze Park. Featuring 25th anniversary sponsors, City Furniture and City Center West Orange. With Friday night performances by Orlando's Spade Cooley, Nashville's own contemporary country trio, Runaway June, American Idol winner Scotty.
So these are all country stars. It's a free concert. It's all country.
Saturday promises to be an epic day that starts at 7:30 a.m. with Chick-fil-A's 8th annual 5K and Kids Fun Run, followed by the Fab 5 fishing tournament at Stark Lake and the Classic Car Show.
Oh, classic cars.
On the Key Street at Bill Breeze.
I bet you they got mayonnaise.
Activities commence as early as 9 a.m. Attendees can enjoy an array of festival food, carnival rides for the kids, a unique market.
Peep Jeffrey right here. All right, so hold on. Just peep Jeffrey's shirt.
Why is his name Jeffrey?
I don't know. It seems like a Jeffrey. All right,
no,
so
real quick.
Hold on, there's 30 seconds left. Hold on, 30 seconds left in the promo. I want to be fair. I just want to be fair. This is a 2018 promo. I could be completely wrong.
Elizabeth Cook, singer,
there's 20 more seconds left in this promo.
Country music hitmaker, Easton Corbin, and headliners
Thompson,
and legends. Big and
what is missing from this promo?
Closes out with an amazing fireworks.
Hold on, don't judge it just yet. All right, it's over. It's over. 5, 4, 3, 2. Look carefully. What's missing from this promo?
The city of
Play this back 100 times. What's missing from this promo?
I guess you want me to say black people, right?
So it's not just me.
Well, I see that it is, but it's
Why are they celebrating on November 2nd? Like, what are they? What's the founding? Like, what?
I don't know. But why does it start 25 years ago? Is the bigger question, I think, to me. What is significant of 25 years ago? Did you look that up?
They just say that it represents the founding. So basically, they're saying that they decided 25 years ago to celebrate the founding of Ocoee.
On the 2nd.
Yes.
Every year.
Every year.
Ocoee.
No black people.
No black people in the promo.
No black people at the event, man.
At the very least, it looks kind of funny. You know what I mean? I could get all like Dave Chappelle and Brother Man. No, what was the name? Remember that movie? With Eddie Griffin.
Maybe.
Dave Chappelle. Black Man. What was this shit called?
I don't know.
Anyway, he was Conspiracy Brother.
Okay.
I could get all that.
Undercover Brother.
Undercover Brother.
Okay.
I love that movie. I couldn't remember the title. But you know, it looks very funny, man. It's looking real funny. That may just be a total like ignorance about like history, but it's not like a long time ago. Like your dad was there.
Grandpa.
Not your grandpa. Your dad was there. Right?
What, at the event?
At whatever event happened.
25 years ago, yeah. Absolutely. But that's what I'm saying is
your
that
grandpa was at this thing with July Perry, but your dad was like there at 25 years ago to find out whatever. So it's kind of weird.
On the second. You want to hear something else weird? There's a Greenwood Cemetery in Orlando. It's a historic cemetery.
Yeah.
So all these guys are fighting to separate as far as guys like whites and blacks, right? Mostly whites persecuting blacks, right? And they're fighting and they're like, I don't want black people around me. I don't want them to live here. I'm going to banish them from a town. But when push comes to shove, all these motherfuckers, Salisbury, like
the steak.
Cheney.
Oh,
I would
Judge
say
Cheney?
70% of the motherfuckers that were involved are buried at Greenwood.
Where's Greenwood? Is that the one off of Anderson?
Yeah, and July Perry's buried there. Salisbury buried there. Cheney's buried there. Bumby, like all the historical people from
off of Anderson.
Yeah. So isn't that irony? Like you trying to separate from these people. You hate
buried
these
together.
people, and we're all buried together.
Yeah, we all go on the ground at the end of the day for sure.
We're the same people.
That's one of those life lessons that we know.
What are we fighting, man? Like men, women, we're the same people, bro. No matter what color.
I don't know what it is. It's still happening right now, man.
We all make the same babies. We all have the same families. We have the same love, compassion for one another as far as family. Like, so we have to be able to.
There's people that want to split the country up into like country type places, you know what I mean? Like, down here we're gonna shoot guns and whatever the fuck, up here we're gonna respect people and whatever. It's like one of these dumb 5 or 6 segments of the country turn into like a, I don't know, like a tequila, Hunger Games type place without the murder and stuff. Just like there's different sections of the country or whatever. Some people want to be like that because then you can live in a place where you can live by your own set of personal values. You can live somewhere where everybody else kind of agrees with what you're saying. That sucks for me, but I don't want to ever live like that. But it's interesting. There's an argument, I guess, to be had if eventually what we're doing now doesn't work, because it seems to be a popularity contest and who can lie the best to get into a position to make promises that they don't all the way keep, with a little bit of slow progression as we move forward. I guess if we don't like that and we want to turn it into something else, then there's an argument to be had for many countries, I guess. I don't know. Hopefully not, though. I like it how it is. Even now, this crazy circus that we're having, it's so crazy. It seems like something new every day, something more interesting. But
we're coming up on the 100-year anniversary. Not anniversary. I don't want to say anniversary.
Yeah. How do you categorize?
But in 2020, on November 2nd, it's coming up, and
well, what America does, they call it stuff like positive and they flip it. You know what I mean? Thanksgiving. Nice. Thanksgiving. It's a day we get together and give thanks.
Celebrate
what happened on Thanksgiving? What exactly? So the Ocoee Massacre, are we still questioning if that was a massacre or not?
I mean, it's like I said, this is such an underground story.
I don't know.
It was buried within,
but I'm sure it seems
history.
It seems if it's anything like Black Wall Street, and it seems to be.
Well, a lot of people know about Black Wall Street. I honestly just found out about this year because of Tristan. Yeah.
I mean, I know, like I said, this happened all over the country in different places.
So Ocoee, like I said,
Mississippi, I know there was one too.
Well, the crazy thing about this is that there was all the blacks left Ocoee. They didn't come back till the 1980s, okay? And now there's over 40,000 people.
That's how you know they're fucked up.
Read that for us.
Dogs and Negroes not welcome.
That was the city slogan?
No dogs, bro.
That was the city slogan in 1959. Oh, it says until at least 1959, there was a sign posted at the town line that said dogs and Negroes not welcome.
That's how I know you're a psycho, bro.
And even up to the 90s, there was a common bit of wisdom passed down amongst black families not to be caught in Ocoee after sundown.
And now, too.
Apparently. Well, now there's over 40. It says the Ocoee of today is a modern integrated city with over 40,000 people, 15% of them African American. Wow. So back then it was 50%. Okay. It was 1,000 people, half were 500. And now, even 50 years later, there's 40,000 people and there's only 15% African American. Wow. Like they still run it. They still run Ocoee.
Yeah. You saw the promo. You saw that Confederate ass flag. Heritage, not hate. Crazy.
What a crazy story, man.
It's going to keep. It'll keep being that for some years to come. It takes a long time.
You think the families will ever get some sort of like money? I don't know. An
Have the Native Americans got anything?
Well, yeah, they're protected by the federal government. They're able to, they're provided some type of resources to kind of say, here's some land, here's some opportunities to do whatever you want, build a casino, and it's all you. They're tax exempt. I mean, it's not like by any means like completely what they lost, but it's at least the government of now's way of saying sorry for what happened in the past. Reparations. I don't think anybody needs 40 acres and a mule anymore. Maybe the 40 acres, but substitute the mule for like a pickup truck now. Something better, For that matter, help
a car and a whip. And we're good.
No, we're not good, but that's
not good, but like I'm just saying, like
just like Hispanic communities, African American, any minority community, we have to take example from people like maybe like the Chinese people, right? The Chinese people, what they do is they have their own communities, and within that community they build, right? So they hire their own contractors, they have their own restaurants, they have their own markets. So when people make money within that community, it stays on an average of 30 days. That money stays 30 days extra in that community before it leaves that community, right? Hispanic communities, African American communities, even poor white communities don't do that. They spend their money at Walmart or they spend their money at other places. So it doesn't come back to the community, And unfortunately, people like July Perry get murdered. People like Malcolm X get murdered. So all these leaders always get murdered. And we're just unfortunately left with people that are not powerful thinkers like that, not motivated thinkers like that, So the stigma, and you see it. Why are black neighborhoods, the majority of them, unfortunately, why are they sometimes looked as ghettos or underprivileged communities with less resource? Same thing with Hispanic American communities,
Directly to the east of Ocoee, Pine Hills.
And that Pine Hills was built originally for the workers of Lockheed Martin. So it was for whites. Same thing that happened in Compton, right?
I knew that was built for whites, but I didn't know it was for the workers of Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, and so when that was built in the 50s, when Lockheed Martin came down here, they basically lived there for 20, 30 years, and then they moved to other places, and
Windermere.
And the ignorant thing is when a lot of blacks would move in, the whites would move out. You know what I mean? It's happened in Compton. It happened in a lot of communities.
That fear, man.
And those communities were actually good too, And then crack came, and other, drugs and propaganda.
Yeah, man. I mean, they kept it going in the 60s, right? Hoover, when the FBI and the
COINTELPRO, which was the FBI's.
Was it Reefer Madness?
Yeah,
scared the shit out of people.
Yeah, but they had there was this thing called COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO.
Colint.
I'm murdering the word.
I don't know what it is.
FBI.
Colint. I don't know what it is.
Hold on.
Colon.
FBI. COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
COINTELPRO.
So what this was, Edgar Hoover decided to go after like the Black Panthers. There was a lot of like black, powerful, social service groups, right? That were putting together like breakfast for the kids, like teaching them how to build credit, things like that, and but they also had guns, and they were carrying guns and stuff. So the FBI would do stuff like write letters to opposing factions and cause them to beef within each other, and that's what COINTELPRO. So this is even as high as the FBI, going after African Americans to try to break them down because they didn't want them to organize or have any power and stuff like that, because they felt like it could, disrupt the current power structure. That was their argument. We're not racist.
Racist as fuck, bro.
That's what they were saying.
And yeah, I didn't know I didn't know what the colon was, but COINTELPRO, I heard that before in that movie called Panthers in the 90s.
Yeah. Because they systematically took out all those.
That's petty, man. You know what I mean? Hey, man.
Insecurity.
So and so said this about you. Nah, man.
Insecurity, overcompensating for fear, envy. Blind will, man.
Blind will. What's that?
When you go do something, you have will to do something, but you do it blindly. So murder, but things that are negative, you know what I mean? Or they can perceive maybe immoral, you're going to do them with blind will. You know what I mean? Because normally a good person wouldn't do something like that, right? But if you're blinded by your will, based
you're just
on
going to do it anyway,
or any of those, insecurities, you're going to overcompensate with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's my excuse. That's my only analytical observation of a racist prick. Like, this is what you are. You have to be completely insecure.
Oh, absolutely.
To be affected by. Wow. You should also put AI text speaking transitional people.
No, this is against. You read this.
Oh. Why be racist, sexist, homophobic, or transphobic when you could just be quiet?
See what I'm saying? Transphobic. That's about transitioning people, right?
Are you transphobic towards Kimberly?
I don't understand Kimberly. What the hell Kimberly is?
Is that what you say to the LGBT community when you're with them? I don't understand. Is that what you say?
No.
I think that's not empathetic to people in the transitional period in their life. Well, this is another episode. I'm glad that you allowed us to enter your mind by using your ears, and hopefully you can talk about this at some time. And
I hope Peans didn't offend anybody with the opening.
Listen, if I offended anybody...
Did Kimberly get everything she needed to say out?
No.
Okay.
It's a long story, but she's not mad about it. She thinks we're pussies. That's a good thing, though.
Why is that?
Because she's transitional.
Because vaginas are powerful?
No, she just likes them.
What?
So this is Fresh Produce Florida podcast. Email us if you think I'm an asshole. Let me know. Let me know. Let's have an open dialogue.
100% confused as hell I am about Kimberly. So
we all are confused at one time in our life. So this is the Fresh Produce Podcast. Email us at freshproducefloridamedia@gmail. freshproducefloridamedia@gmail. That is the Gmail. Now, if you see any of this content on any social media, feel free to comment. Reach out to us. You know, and again, humbly speaking, I love everyone in the world.
Humbly speaking, I love everyone in the world.
Including animals.
Including animals?
Yeah.
You love animals?
I love animals.
I love animals too.
I love every living species and artificially intelligent, that as long as they're positive people and they're bringing positive vibes, they have, in the words of DJ Khaled, the keys.
Oh, motivational to bring it all the way around.
He's a scholarly individual from Florida
of the podcast,
a gentleman of leisure,
DJ Khaled.
Yeah. Peace and love. Gang signs.